Oh. All right, hey guys, what's going on, everybody? This is Mark from SolarGames, and today we're going to be talking about end of year reflections. So, some of you guys know I like to kind of end the year thinking about what has happened this year, all the different things that has happened, kind of different like pieces and what has happened. Think about the past, think about the future, think about like I don't know things that like I thought was going to happen and didn't happen, or what has happened and I was surprised by. So most of you guys know this channel is about card games and finance of card games, etc. So we're going to, of course, talk about just that. So going to start the year, of course, talking about some major differences, changes, events, shakeups within the Magic community. Obviously, um, this channel being a heavy Magic channel, we have to start with Magic. Well, the first thing I have to say is, honestly, my opinion, 2023 has really shown the hands of Wizards of the Coast. And I'm confident in saying that I think Magic Gathering is no longer king. Now, no king rules forever, but they've been up there top dog for a long, long, long time. And I really think this year, looking at across the board, looking at all the different games doing different things, looking at like for example Pokemon, really kind of going off the chains with the sales, with the different like collectability, those kind of things. Looking at Fab, looking at like One Piece and all these other like upcoming games, you can see like the chink in the armor of Magic the Gathering is definitely showing, and you can see weakness within the company. Like they release products that are like supposed to be really good products, banger products, good cards, and it's kind of like just like fizzles, right? And then all the predictions I've made in the past about certain boxes collapsing has by and large happened, right? So one of the things I remember talking about back in 2022 and early 2023 was I don't think Brothers War Collectors is going to hold. And of course, a lot of people were like, no way, man, this one with serialized cards, it's the first one with serialized cards. Of course, it's going to be fine. But nothing beats overprinting. Nothing beats a flood, right? So if you have a flood of product coming down the line, well, guess what? The price can't hold. And that's exactly what happened. And we've seen this, right? Brothers War Collector's Boosters. You can buy these, totally legitimate Amazon ones. This one here, for example, with all the cards already pre-opened for you. You can pay $160 for that, right? But obviously, you can, non-scam ones, I'm joking, but the non-scam ones are also $160. So what does that say about that product line? What does that say about all the product line that's happened, right? Dominaria United. You got like all the different things that happened, like Phyrexia All-Be-One. These are all good sets. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But they're slowly showing weakness because if you have a lot of product, right, then what's going to happen? Not just product like different things, but also within each product, like I've said before, within each product, there's so many lines of product. You got set boosters, strap boosters, collector's boosters, and you can see Wizards of the Coast has realized this problem too, which is why they're trimming down their catalog of products, right? They're not, they're getting rid of the basically set boosters and draft boosters and combining them together into a play booster. And I think we're going to see more like basically, efficiency gains within the product catalog coming this year too, because Wizards of the Coast has also realized, look, they can't keep doing this to stores, to people. Lastly, too, like about, all the Amazon dumps and Amazon this, Amazon that, all the, crazy preferential prices to Amazon, that has to stop too. And Wizards of the Coast has realized, like, they can't, give these preferential prices to Amazon and then basically screw the LGSs. Now, I don't think they want to realize that, but I think they're seeing the problems, which is, hey, look, you sell a good product, it's a banger product out of the gate, and more people still hate the game. More people are not playing it. More people are not feeling engaged with it. And then you have less and less orders. Sure, you're selling more direct to consumers and you're making more money on each one of those sales that they convert. But distribution is taking less of your product. Stores are taking less from distributors, right? So long term, the people who are kind of like your whales in the game are not buying a ton of products. And then that's a big problem long term for Magic. Along with that too, we have upstarts, right? So why am I saying Magic is no longer king? I'm not saying Magic still doesn't have the major market share, but you can definitely see that weakening that's happening, and that has happened in 2023 because you see games like Pokemon. People were talking about Pokemon everywhere. I have random people just asking me about Pokemon nowadays at work, freaking on the road. I'm walking around. People are like, "Hey, Mark, I want to ask you a question about Pokemon." I'm like, "Wow, can we just talk about Magic finance?" No, who cares about that, right? I go and buy collections or sell collections. People are like, do you have any Pokemon cards? They don't ask me about like Magic cards. They don't ask me about Yu-Gi-Oh cards. They ask about Pokemon cards, right? Yu-Gi-Oh, of course, still a powerhouse, just its competitive game. Obviously, the secondary market for Yu-Gi-Oh is always a little bit shaky. It's a tricky market. Um, if the set's not a powerhouse, if the set doesn't have cards that everybody needs, it kind of just doesn't do well long term. There's that. And then of course, like Fab is still there. Now Fab has its own problems with respect to like overprinting, not being transparent with the print runs, holding people to certain prices, but they don't have the like. Look, one of the things about I don't like about MAP, right? With MAP, minimum advertised pricing. Basically, it's the pricing that stores or the creators of the game enforce across level of all the stores so that the stores aren't undercutting each other and basically making the game look like a cheap game. I don't really like this policy. Overall, I think it's like necessary because obviously you don't want out of the gate people underselling you your game because they're trying to get rid of inventory and making the game look really bad, right? However, at the same time, holding this type of policy for long term, holding this for long term, enforcing across the stores, and basically forcing stores who believed in your product, bought your stuff early, and then basically have now to take losses on your product because they were, I guess, suckers for jumping in first. That's really a bad feeling. And this is basically what's happening in the fab world. Of course, also on the other side of this, because the boxes are not getting cheaper, and the decks are getting a little bit more like more and more competitive decks require cards from newer boxes that are of higher rarity. Well, you have other basically players unable to basically play the game because a lot of the top tier decks are very expensive, and that's another issue too. Like, so part of this is like, does Fab want to be a collector game or does it want to be a competitive game? It doesn't. I don't think it knows what it wants to be. I think in the beginning, Fab was trying to with cold foils and things like that, trying to be a collector friendly game. But one of the challenges or problems I've always had with Fab is the fact that like a lot of the cards that are really, really good, like the armaments, some of them are just ultra rare, right? It's not like the cold foil version's ultra rare. All of them are ultra rare. So it's really hard to kind of get the thing like that you really, really want or really, really need. And you could argue with me that, hey, it's not necessary, or maybe that's not the best card. But, for example, like the Cloak of Fendril, right? That one, Spring Cloak of Fendril, I think. It's like a really good card. I see a lot of decks running it, in the armaments and stuff like that. But it's also very expensive, right? And then you got other cards like Command and Conquer, like these other kind of like meta-defining cards that are, well, pretty expensive because, there's not enough printing of them. So I think Fab has not figured out how to balance collectability with, like gameplay so that you can make the players and the collectors happy. And that's where I think Fab is failing and continues to fail now, even with their, Fab 2.0, getting rid of first edition, which I think is the right play because there's a lot of like weirdness with first ed. People are forced to kind of buy that first edition anyways because you have no other products. And then of course that tanks the unlimited or second set because, well, like I already have all the cards. Who's buying that inferior box, especially if that inferior box is not like way cheaper? It's a really weird situation, right? Or especially if you overprint first edition and then not have enough products or have too much products before the unlimited even happens, right? As we've seen with Tales of Aria, Monarch, etc. From that era forward, right? Everfest, etc. So those are the other games out there too. But remember, just because Fab has his own problems does not mean it's not a good competitor for Magic. And that's where what I'm saying is Magic is not necessarily the lower market share than any of these other games. It's the fact that these other games are taking major market share away from Magic. It's making Magic basically starting to fall off of like a majority, right? It's not holding 50% of the trading card game market anymore. It's going to start falling more and more as it bleeds players because players are getting kind of tired of the way Hasbro, the way that Wizard of the Coast is running the company. And so there's that. The other part of it too is also you got to remember there's all the other small card games that came out of 2020 COVID era. So card games that I cover like Grand Archive, but also One Piece, Digimon. You got a bunch of these other card games that's maybe not all of them, and actually I'm pretty sure not all of them will survive, right? So we're going to be realistic. They're not all great card games that are all going to be super successful like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, that kind of stuff. However, do not dismiss all of them or and say none of them will survive because I guarantee you some of them will. Like you got card games like One Piece that have like crazy amount of branding power, right? People who have followed this anime manga forever, and now there's a card game and it's a pretty decent card game from what I hear. Well, guess what's going to happen? That thing is going to take over, and players have a wallet. Their wallet is not limitless, so they're going to choose games, right? A lot of times I talk to players, they say, I can only support X amount of card games in my life, 1 to 2, whatever, right? Very few players play everything, very few, right? And so you can imagine somebody who says, hey, all my friends are playing One Piece. LGS is hosting One Piece more. The pricing is good. Why would I play Magic, right? And that's where you start losing market share because you start seeing, and it doesn't have to be nibbled by one card game. It could be done by many different ones, right? Death by 1,000 cuts. And that's what I'm seeing with Magic. The other problem too is also, I think this over focus of Commander. As I've said, in a couple of videos before, I think the reason and downfall for Magic right now in the current era is actually Commander. I know a lot of you guys out there are really big Commander fans, and maybe I'll die on this hill, but I do think Magic is being killed by its, I don't know, most casual, interesting, most broad format called Commander, right? Part of the issue is that I'm totally fine with people inventing new formats that are casual, that are multiplayer, engages different audiences. The issue becomes a problem when Commander is kind of like pushed onto everything else. Imagine you want to open a pack of cards, you just want to play draft or limited, but you're seeing like half your pack is Commander cards, right? Or built for Commander. It just has a bad feeling. And the other side of it too, like think about how Commander works. As a Commander player, honestly ask yourself, what do you want to do in a Commander? Like, why do you want to play Commander? Why do you like Commander as a format? Most people want to do it because it's, self-expression, right? Creativity. I take a card that nobody recognizes, I build a deck around it, I find all these weird cards that have never been played, really, right? From all the way back in 1994 of Magic, all the way to current day, and then I figure out different ways to kind of make it together into a deck. That's where a lot of players and how they want to engage with Commander. Now, of course, you have the newcomers who, like me, who join Commander much, much later and don't really know. Yeah, we'll buy a pre-con deck, right, and start from there. But even when you start playing pre-cons, you start kind of getting this feeling like, oh, I really want to build a cool ninja deck. I want to build like a merfolk deck. I want to build, I don't know, like a bunch of dragons or vampires, all these really thematic things. And this is where Commander shines. The problem with Wizards of the Coast is they're taking some of that creativity away. And that's why I think it's, becoming a little bit more boring for players. Players want to find the weird niche vampire you can use in the vampire deck. I want to build a cleric and vampire deck or a vampire demon deck, right? But I don't just want you to give me signpost vampire demon lords that you can then use in every deck, right? So the problem with Commander, honestly, is because there's too much Commander products and there's too many made for Commander cards, and you can see a lot of them are just duds because they come out, people look at them, yeah, they're a Commander card, right? But it's like, it's built for Commander, and it takes some of that creativity away that actually makes people want to look at different cards and look at different things, So that's why I'm a little bit like negative on the fact that Wizards of the Coast focuses so much on Commander. And so building all these made for Commander cards are not necessarily better for all the players. But on the other side, like for your modern players, pioneer players, and for your, what every other format players, right? Standard, which is, by the way, Standard's dead, right? Standard's dead except on Arena. Is that how it works? Because I still sell some cards that are for Standard, but apparently nobody plays in paper. So are you guys all collecting are you just holding your Standard cards at home while you play Arena so you can hold it in your hand? Is that what's happening? I don't know why I still sell Standard cards. Anyways, Standard's dead, right? But nobody wants to like open a pack for Standard cards and see a bunch of Commander cards, right? And it's cool, but it's not useful. And that's where I think Commander long-term is actually going to cause problems for Magic, because it's making Magic, which is powerful, honestly, because it's a multi-format game, into a single format game. And a lot of players are going to feel like they're kind of like, pushed out of the game. There's nothing for them in this game anymore. The other part too, price memory, right? So Wizards of the Coast in the last 2-3 years have done some really stupid stuff with fucking idiotic shit, okay, with Amazon dumps. So the fact that Amazon dumps is even a word that we all kind of like just like make fun of, ha ha ha, whatever, about, is because Magic the Gathering is so stupid that they think, oh, we can go directly to the consumers and make some money. And it's great. Like on paper, this is awesome. But think about all the bridges you're burning. And every single bridge that has built your empire until now, you're burning. So now you're on a fucking island and you're by yourself and you're like, oh, how come nobody cares about us? And well, guess what? You burn all the fucking bridges. People can't leave the island. They can't get back on it, right? That's so dumb. So Amazon dumps, if you will, it's like a really cool short-term thing for Wizards of the Coast, but long-term, it's going to cause problems, right? Again, I'm not against Wizards of the Coast putting their products onto Amazon. That's fine. The problem becomes when those Amazon prices are lower than distribution prices, right? And so the stores are looking and saying like, why am I going to distribution when I could go directly to Amazon to buy my stuff, right? And then the distributors are like, what the fuck? Like we do this, right? We have volume discounts with you, with Wizard of the Coast, but you're giving better prices to Amazon so they can sell, basically direct sell to consumers. That's terrible. So Magic has to, at the core, understand which side is it going to be on. Are you going to go through direct to consumer, which is fine, right? But then you lose all the LGSs and local gameplay, and which is fine, right? Because Magic is going to be a digital company, right? So it doesn't matter. Or do you actually, go through LGSs and serve them better, give them preferential things, right? Like I think the buy a box promos, those kind of things are great, but not good if you're giving them essentially like worthless cards. Remember when buy a box promos were exclusive cards? Nexus of Fates, right? You got the Kenrith. These exclusive cards that were for stores only. You couldn't get them from Amazon, right? But now they're just kind of like boring cards. You can get them in the boxes. There's nothing exclusive about them. And so it becomes like, why do I have to go to the store? Amazon sells it for $30, $40 cheaper. Why don't I just buy from Amazon? And I can pre-order it and they'll ship it to my house and I don't have to leave. I can just sit in my pajama pants, open booster boxes. I don't have to go to the store, right? Dress up, get cleaned up, etc. So there's that. And then the last thing that's really killed Wizard of the Coast is overprinting. Let's be honest, like overprinting. I don't know what happened at Wizard of the Coast, but they didn't understand their demand at all, right? I think what happened was, they went from one product line, the draft boosters, they just called them booster boxes back then, into like 3 or 4 different product lines, and they forgot that as they did this, they can't also make each one of those product lines, print to, oblivion. And so essentially you've like quadrupled your number of print runs, and they didn't stop, they didn't hold back. See, in the past, like when I would go through distribution, order, etc., my pre-release kit orders were kind of limited. My like bundle orders were kind of limited, right? But then as I've noticed from like 2022 and on, I started getting higher, larger and larger like allocations for pre-release kits, for bundles, for the other auxiliary product. We're not even talking about draft boosters, set boosters, and collectors boosters, which by the way, those have also increased in quantity of what I can order. So then I kind of got thinking like, oh, they're printing more because it's so much more available now than before, right? And I would see, and I used to never see this, but I would see distribution discounting pre-release kits. Some of my patrons know this because recently I did a sale and I just gave a bunch of people like, March of the Machines pre-release kits for like very, very good pricing because I got a very good deal from distribution, right? And so I used to never be able to just do that, but now it's readily available. I don't know how that works. I figured it's probably just print run. And so this is the issue. These things happen and they give us, the buyers, the collectors, the players, the stores, the LGSs, the distributors, like price memory. So now we think, okay, what is a pre-release kit supposed to be? What is this going to be if they have to dump it later? We start thinking about these things and it makes it so that this overprinting causes the prices to actually fall, even as Wizard of the Coast is trying to raise the price. And so all these like 4 price increases due to inflation, all the other economic factors, shipping from China, whatever, right? They're bullshit. Because at this point, tell me how you're able to sell a Dominaria Remastered, booster box for $85, right, from distributors. Why? How? If it's really, right, like, so I don't know what happened. Maybe distribution is just clearing house, so they're taking the loss, but somebody's taking a loss, right? And so throughout the chain, something has happened where it broke. And so these price increases don't really mean anything if there's overprinting of product. And that's exactly what's happening, right? Stores are dumping them. Because I went to a store locally and there was Dominaria Remastered at 90. I didn't even buy it. I paid 160 when it was first released. I did not even flinch to buy it at 90. Okay? And it's a good thing I didn't because now there's distribution pricing. Basically, I can get it at 85 now. So even better, right? So it's really crazy how this all works, like with this overprinting, people losing confidence. And that's really where I think, the downfall of Wizard of the Coast has begun. The last thing I'll say about Wizard of the Coast and Magic the Gathering no longer being king is that really, I think over this year, it's become very clear to me that WotC doesn't know what their customers want. And I don't mean like they don't know that their customer want like more powerful cards, they don't want like cheaper products, etc., more readily available game pieces. I think of it like they don't understand fully what they truly want, right? People, it's really messed up. And I've said this many, many times, but it's really hard to do this, right? Which people want cheap cards when they buy them, but they want them to be expensive when they sell. That makes no logical sense, but that's what people want, right? And so you as a designer of a card game, you have to figure out how to actually execute this thing. I know it sounds crazy and impossible, but you have to figure out a way to execute it. I think part of it is not like tanking the price of your cards, because the more you do that, the more people start losing confidence, faith, right? You can't have a bunch of like booster boxes with mythic rares that are like $1 or 50 cents. You can't do that. Like the mythic rares are supposed to be super rare. They can't be 50 cents. They can't be $1.25. That's terrible. So long term, Wizard of the Coast has to figure out understanding like, what did we do wrong here, right? Maybe some cards that are like the spiking rares should have been mythic rares and vice versa, right? Why are you printing bulk mythic rares? It doesn't make any sense. And this is where what I'm saying is like, I don't think Wizard of the Coast understands what their customers want. If you look at the older sets, most of the older sets, when they were in rotation for standard, the mythic rares were mythic rare. They were actually really, really good. They were powerful. They're good for constructed play. But nowadays, mythic rares are kind of just ignored. Like, people are looking at the cards and like, we don't need them. Like most of them, right? There's obviously 1 or 2 usually per set of mythic rares. Out of 20, guys, there's always 20 mythic rares in each set, and there's 1 or 2 that's like kind of like decently priced. That's not a good thing for the game, right? And Wizard of the Coast has lost that. They don't understand why this is happening, because part of their design is just broken. Part of their QA process is probably broken too, right? And that's what I mean. The other part of it too is they think they can sell this many products, but they actually can't. So on the other hand, they don't actually know what the demand is at all. So they don't know what their customer wants, because if you know what your customer wants, you should be able to print, within reason about the quantity that your customer is going to buy. So then why did Crimson Vow happen? Why did Midnight Hunt happen, right? Why did all these sets that collapse? Why did Commander Legends Baldur's Gate happen? Especially on, basically before a huge ass movie and a game that was, very, very well received. Maybe not the movie so much, but the game definitely, right? How did Baldur's Gate collapse when the game was well received, video game, right? So could you have done this better, where you collab with the game better, with release schedule? That's what I'm saying. I don't think Wizard of the Coast understands truly what they want, what their customers want. So enough talking about Wizard of the Coast. I do want to cover a couple other card games. This video is getting a little longer, which is fine. This is our, start of the new year video, so we can go a little longer. Lorcana. Lorcana is a new game that has been released by Disney, and let's be honest, strong IP, strong branding power. There's nothing, there's no doubt there, right? And it's very child friendly. This is the thing, like Lorcana has chosen a path where it's more like Pokemon in the beginning years. It's more like Magic the Gathering in the beginning years. It's a simple game, less interactions, but more fun. And there's no like killing. It's like, you do quests, you earn quest points. It's kind of like that kind of game. So it's very children friendly. So adults are going to be more okay with buying these cards, right? They're not going to be like, oh, demons and shit, like we've got Pokemon, you're capturing, enslaving, animals. Like we're not going to have that kind of problem with Lorcana, right? And most kids are already part of the Disney family, unless you're one of those parents who's like, Disney, super evil, like that kind of stuff, right? But by and large, Lorcana is going to do very well on the branding side. I think the problem comes in 2 places. Number one, gameplay. For more competitive players, for players who are looking for more in-depth gameplay, they're not going to pick up Lorcana. They're going to look at the cards and say, that's cool. Number 2 is the fact that, like, I don't think the collectability of Lorcana is there. Now, I get it. It's like a Disney thing. But Disney could just print another thing in the future. That's number 1, right? The Lorcana doesn't have to be the last card game by Disney, right? Number 2, like, right now, this market is, it's really hot right now, but part of this is just because there's a bunch of scalpers. I've seen this story before. This happens with every single Kickstarter game. A Kickstarter game comes out, people will discover it, right? Or small game. Lorcana is not a Kickstarter, but this, similar story, right? A game comes out, a bunch of like people are really interested. All the scalpers realize, oh, there's potential. They buy up the entire supply, right? They go crazy. Then they sell it back to the market at like, 3, 4, 500, percent profit. And everyone feels great. All the scalpers are all happy. But then like as more products printed, remember, because the scalpers don't control the print runs, the companies do. Well, the market gets flooded because there's fake demand. Remember, like all the products are gone. It's sent a bad signal to the developers. They didn't actually know the products are gone because, like, how do you tell if it's scalpers or a bunch of players are playing the game? You really can't tell. And all you're hearing feedback-wise is players saying, I want to play the game, but my LGS doesn't have the product. So, of course, you ramp up the printing, and, of course, more product comes to the market. Then on the second wave, because the scalper on the first wave already made money, they're going to say, oh, you got a lot of sideliners now jumping in saying, oh, I want to buy. And usually this is when people get burned, right? So the overprinting of the second set, third set, etc., with a bunch of people buying in at ridiculous prices, costs more printing to happen. And then, of course, then just totally collapses because everyone on the second printing now has enough product. No one's really going to touch the third printing. And now with the third printing out, everyone's trying to dump inventory because we have sorceries coming down. We got to go buy that game. Fuck this game, right? We're done. So that's exactly why a lot of games like this kind of fail. I think long term, like Lorcana, if it has I don't know, if it becomes more like Pokemon, I think it'll be fine. It would just be a card game that some people collect. You put in a binder, you go to school, you trade with your friends. I'll trade you a Mickey Mouse for a princess, whatever. But let's be honest, like there's a point when Disney's not cool anymore. And this is why like Pokemon is really, really like niche market, is because Pokemon kind of hits kids around like the 7-ish, like the first grader, second grader era, all the way until like middle school. Then around middle school, Pokemon's no longer cool. You kind of just like stop, like it's there's a good range. And then of course Pokemon becomes cool again when you're like older, like 20 something or whatever, 30 something, when you have your own kids and you're buying Pokemon cards for them. So you're also a collector. Lorcana is weirder, right? Because it's really for parents who collect for their kids, because the kids that want to play Lorcana, they get to about like, I don't know, 4th, 5th grade. And I don't know about you, but like when I was in 4th grade, I didn't want to be like wearing Disney backpacks. I didn't want to, I didn't want to know, like, I really didn't want people to know I love Aladdin. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's not cool. So, like, it's a really weird niche where I think Lorcana has like a very much shorter lifetime than other card games. Now, of course, when you get to like college, right, it's kind of cool to like Disney again because you're in film school, you're in art school, you're like drawing shit. You're like, oh, so fancy, right? All this stuff, right? Fancy shit. Then, of course, Lorcana's kind of cool. You can collect the cards. But I think, honestly, that range is really weird for Lorcana, which is why I don't like it. Plus, it's not competitive. If the game is really, really good and it draws in like competitive players, it can bridge between where it's a kind of cool collectible thing all the way across to where it's a good card game for people to compete with, right? And that's usually where you bridge that like middle schooler all the way to high school to college, that era. So you see a lot of college kids, for example, who have a little bit more disposable income. They usually buy into things like Yu-Gi-Oh, Magic, right? They're not buying like a ton of like, I don't know, Pokemon and those kind of things. I didn't, for example, in college, I bought Pokemon to flip. Basically, I was just flipping Pokemon back in college. I didn't really buy it to play, right? Okay, talking about sorcery. Longer review coming down the line on my channel. I did play Sorcery, the beta edition, the starter decks, etc., with my friend Ben. It was a really good experience overall, I think. But some of my concerns with Sorcery on my initial video were realized, absolutely realized. If you care about collectability and you like the artwork, I think Sorcery is fine. Again, it's one of those games for like older people. You can collect and you look at the artwork and feel good about yourself, etc. But if you want a card game that's like complex but also really interesting, sorry, one sec. If you want a card game that's really complex, really interesting, I don't think Sorcery is it for you, right? It's not really. I don't think that's the right game for you, because I think the card game is really weird. Like it targets a really weird niche where it's not really. How do I say this? The people who play Sorcery, right? It's really complicated. Like a board game is complicated. Like I'm referencing rules the whole time. However, it doesn't have the deep mechanics of a really good card game. So it's kind of weird. And then you add on the fact that it's a TCG, so you have to actually go out there and collect extra cards, which makes it really confusing. Like, I think the best way to describe it is I think it's really complicated in ways that it shouldn't be, and it's really simple in the ways that it needs to be. And so I don't think it, at least for me, it hits the niche of what I'm looking for in a card game. So I will take a pass on Sorcery. I will, of course, hold boxes like this just for fun. Like, I mean, I'll hold it. It's nice. It's a beautiful little piece. You can look at the artwork, etc. But is it a card game I'm going to put money in long term? No, I'm just going to pass on it. Again, my philosophy has always been I don't invest in anything that I don't understand. And Sorcery, it's not for me, right? It's not. I'm not understanding it. Plus, I don't really want to spend time to really truly go into it more, because on the surface, it's not something that's interesting to me. Moving on to one of my favorite games, Grand Archive. So Grand Archive is amazingly cool. So Grand Archive, unlike Sorcery, so coming back from there, is a very interestingly deep mechanical game, right? So the game is actually really, really fun. And even with just like a minimal card pool, I think Grand Archive, come January 27th with the release of the third set. By the way, if you're a patron, we're going to have a big sale on Alchemical Revolution available too. So if you're looking forward to that, Patreon, and then support me, and then we can get those boxes out to you come January something, 25th, 26th, around release date is when those boxes will be available, and I'll ship them out to you. Anyways, Grand Archive is a game where I think mechanically it's very complicated, and it's really, really good if you're a player. However, the tricky part about Grand Archive is that it's also really complicated. So all the really good things about the game makes it hard for newer players to kind of enjoy and join in. And so that part, it does need a little bit of push. But I think Grand Archive is hitting a part where they're saying, I don't care that it's going to be a little bit difficult in the beginning for new players, but we're trying to catch up the mechanics to some more well-developed games. So in the shortest way possible explaining this, Grand Archive is trying to basically catch up to about 30 years worth of Magic with mechanics and different interactions within about I would say 2 to 3 years. So I would say year 4 is when Grand Archive starts releasing slower mechanics, more just per set, very similar to Magic, 3 new mechanics per set type of thing, rather than having a bunch of stuff, because it's laying down foundations and it needs to do this now. And I think this is the right choice because it keeps us more enfranchised players interested in the game. And of course, there's way more different things it can then focus on and develop into the future, right? Grand Archive is mostly a constructed game right now. There is drafting with the first set, but I'll tell you right now, it doesn't work. It's not really going to, land. Seal does play a little bit better, but even that right now is, it needs a lot more work. But I'm glad that devs are focusing on the first part, which is laying down the foundations for the constructed game. And then they're going to work on different other formats, which is the right thing to do. As far as collectability goes for Grand Archive, extremely collectible. I mean, they have rarities that are super rare. And you know what? Let me show you some stuff. Hang on. I'll be back. So I just got these in the mail a couple days ago. So this is for a redemption event for FTC. But these are the Creative Shock cards. As you can see, we have 4 of these foils, right? Of course, very fancy looking. But Grand Archive has also these what they call basically signature foils. You can see this is this is a collector promo rare, right? But their cardboard is high quality, their artwork's high quality. Even the amount of different, just think about this, right? So this card, maybe you can see it on camera, maybe you can't, but it has it has UV finish on the card surface, so it has ripples and stuff, right? The signature is a gold signature. It looks really fancy, and of course the artwork is full art, and it expands the border way more. So if you take a look at the normal card and compare it to the extended art, it's way more interesting. Been talking for so long, the mic ran out of battery, so we're back. Yeah, it's way more interesting, right? The card artwork is really, really good, and it just has really nice feeling to it. When you buy a Grand Archive card that's super hyper collectible, it feels like it should be very, very expensive, and it feels like it's really, really good. And that's the thing I didn't really get with Magic, where Magic has so many special artwork, so many special frames, so many special foilings that they're doing this on very common cards, and it doesn't make any sense. Grand Archive reserves that special treatment only for super rare cards. So there's never a confusing state where you have a card that looks amazing and you're like, is this actually rare or not? You never feel that with you never feel that way with Grand Archive. The other thing about Grand Archive right now is that the pricing for this game is insanely good. They put so much effort into pricing. A lot of tournaments I go to, right? I have players telling me things like Yu-Gi-Oh has terrible pricing because so you compete in Yu-Gi-Oh, you go in this I don't know 300-400 people tournament and you're top 32 and you lose, right? You scrub out. You get a playmat. So bad, right? Grand Archive, everybody who plays gets a playmat. And it's a really nice, high quality playmat. And then of course your top 32, you get special cards, you get things like this, like a top 32 card. You get special invite cards. It's just overall really, really, really cool. The amount of effort that they put into this game and how they support the competitive play of this game. So I'm very bullish on Grand Archive because I think the developers know what they're doing, and they're a small company. They're not bound by a bunch of shareholders on Wall Street saying, how come you're not making more money for us yet? All they care about is that they have a passion for a card game and they want to make it amazing. And that's why I love Grand Archive. Of course, Grand Archive has also in 2023 have had its downsides too, with Fractured Crown being a really, really weird product where, yeah, it crashed. And the reason it crashed is because, stay with me here, overprinting, right? So the print run was too high. And The thing is, I know the developers printed all the product ahead of time because they're thinking we're not going to run another print run for this product, so this will hold forever. The problem is having that released to the market in the first wave, and that was where the issue is. And I get it, like, part of the issue is like, they're a new company. Where are you going to warehouse this? It costs money to hold it in storage, but you have to do something here, and it's not release the entire product into the market. So I guess maybe just send them over to us, like big whales like us, and we hold it for you. But you know how it works. Like if it becomes readily available out there, then all the prices are going to tank. Of course, with other issues too, I won't get into in this video, but we've talked about with the Fractured Crown and the price crashing in different video. So there's that. One Piece. I'll just quickly talk about One Piece. Strong IP power. I think the game has legs. I just haven't really looked into the game yet, but to be honest, given that it's well received and a lot of people are really liking it, and I'm gonna be honest, anime is mainstream now, so I think if you play an anime card game, you're not gonna be made fun of and kicked out of a store anymore. I think all these different factors are making me think that maybe I should go carry some One Piece as well within SolarGames. So if you're a One Piece fan and you want some products, maybe I will look into how we can get that available through the Patreon, so you can order directly through me, get preferential pricing, etc. But yeah, like if I'm thinking One Piece is one of those card games that has a lot of legs long term. It brings a larger crowd and has IP power. So I don't know. It's like Disney Lorcana put together with like Grandarchive, right? So you have the IP of a good game. You have people who love the game. You have, like, of course, anime waifus and girls. So like it's kind of like win everywhere, right? Lastly, but not least, definitely is Flesh and Blood. Fab has its problems right now, and Fab is in a weird spot. I think on the competitive side, there are a lot of players who do like Fab, but I've also realized that at least locally here in the Bay Area, a lot of stores that used to support Fab have basically lost all their players, and it's kind of weird, right? So what happened? Why did those players go away from Fab? I think part of it too is, number one, the game got too complicated. Like, the game got too complicated too quick. It was already a very competitive game, but it's way too complicated, and a lot of players feel they're kind of being like pushed out of the market. Number two, with Fab, like, it's really expensive, and it's really expensive in a weird way. Like, when we talk about Hasbro and all the things, we talk about game pieces and everything being cheaper. Fab has the opposite problem, where because it tries to balance like both they want to make the competitive players also the collectors, which means that if you want to be a competitive player, you actually have to shell out a lot of money for Fab, which is a big problem, right? If you want to actually play the game and just enjoy it as a player. Whereas a lot of these other card games, One Piece, Grandarchive, etc., they offer like a really cheap option, or much cheaper option for players, that is not non-existent for, or that collectors don't have to worry about, or players don't have to worry about. You don't have to have like a collector promo rare, right? And even these foil Creative Shocks here, which is, by the way, Creative Shock is a very good card in this game. You can just have the normal one. The normal version of this card is like, I don't know, 30 cents. So every player can buy enough copies of this card. It's not a big deal. And that's not existent in Fab, and that's a big problem, right? And so I don't know what Fab's going to want to do, into the future, but they have to adjust kind of how they think about this methodology and how they print cards into different rarities. Maybe some of the cards that they're printing into higher rarities that are kind of like meta in the game, they need to lower the rarity, make it more available for the players so they can actually play, or print so much product that those cards become effectively free game pieces, if you will. And then of course you have certain other cards that are driving all the other, like, actual collectability. I don't really know what the answer is, and it's a really hard question to answer, but I think a company needs to go figure that out, because that is really important if they want to kind of have a game that's has longevity. So it's pretty long video already, so I'll just close that here, which is first of all, I want to say thank you guys so much for supporting me throughout the year. For me personally, it's been a crazy ride, right? Around like September last year, I started with 100 something subs, and now I'm over like 4,000 something, 4,200. I really, and even my channel, right? I've had times when I'm really busy, especially now with my daughter and getting older. My time is divided, and I don't have enough time to keep doing like 3, 4, 5 videos a week like I used to. And so I really want to, thank you guys all, and all the patrons who have stuck with me. I know, when I first launched my Patreon, I had really ambitious plans about like weekly, monthly, daily sales. There's no way I can do that. And that's reality, because I'm so busy. I still have a full-time job that's outside of YouTube. I run a store, which, by the way, in December has been crazy busy. So, when people say things like, "Oh, reserve list is dead, Magic's dead," whatever, it's not at all, right? From my sales number, I can tell you the game is not dead at all, right? It may not be king, but that doesn't mean it's dead. So Magic still, in a lot of ways, still have the highest sale throughput rate, and sometimes if you know where to find the cards, the best margins too. So yeah, I think I'll close on this, right? We're in a really weird market era right now for card games. I'm not as pessimistic as a lot of other people out there that are saying this is the bottom, this is the pit. I'm not sure about that right now. And of course, it is a weird time. So I will not say this is like the best time. Everything is great. But what I will say is, just like Warren Buffett says all the time, right? When others are greedy, be fearful. And when others are fearful, be greedy. I'm not saying that this is the bottom. I'm also not predicting that this is the best time to go buy. You'll never lose money on anything you buy right now. I don't know that for sure. But given all the steep discounts across the board for all card games, my thinking is that it can't be true that every single card game sucks, all their management sucks, and none of them will turn around. It's more likely that many of these card games will figure it out. Many of them will figure out a turnaround story. Some of them will execute this properly, and then a few of them will win out. And the problem is you have no clue which one will do that and which one won't. So the best way you can do this or work through this is to just simply go through and pick your best one. Pick the one that you trust the most. Pick the one that you think has the most viability, most likely to win. And honestly, that's the way to go about it. Or if you don't know, then just buy a little bit of everything. Buy the things that you like. Because the worst case scenario that can happen to you if a card game crashes is you still have the game, right? You can open the boxes, you can enjoy it with your friends, you can play the game. And there's something to that too. And oftentimes when we're too focused on collectability and earning money and 5xing our money, we forget that this is a card game. This is a game that we can enjoy. We can enjoy with our kids. We can enjoy with many other people. And we don't have to look at it purely as a financial machine. And that's where it gets really tricky for some people, but that's kind of how I feel about it. So I'll end it on that. I think honestly, now is the time. If you're specific recommendations here, if you're a collector, if you're looking at like certain card games that have been traditionally a little bit more expensive, or certain cards that have been traditionally more expensive, like dual lands and stuff like that in Magic, reserve list things, I think honestly this is a good time to start looking into them. I'm not saying execute the purchase now. I'm just saying start looking into them, start thinking about whether or not maybe this is something you want to buy like now, and then kind of go forward from there. Anyways, that's going to do it for me for today. I'm Mark from Solar Games. Happy New Year, and remember, stay classy. Thank you. Bye-bye.